Well, hi, everybody. I'm Don Stewart, and welcome to our second edition today of Breaking News. It is Tuesday, the 7th day of May, 2024. And like we always say, stories keep breaking. In the last 7 hours since we talked to you last, there have been a number of very important stories that you and I need to know about. We will deliver them today. Now, if you recall, if you watched the first broadcast, we left you at the story. The UN is trying to do a workaround to create a Palestinian state. And so we asked you the question, how long has there been Arab imperial rule in the Holy Land? Now, notice the way I asked the question, not how long has there been Muslim rule, how long has there been Arab imperial rule? And basically, the Islamic rule is for 1174 years, but the Arab rule has been minuscule, literally less than 100 years. In fact, in our book, 25 Signs, we're near the end when we have an appendix called Who Are the Palestinians, Appendix 6. We talk about this, and we talk about Randall Price, who quotes the chairman to the Syrian delegation to the Paris Peace Conference in 1919. He says the only Arab domination since the conquest in 635 AD hardly lasted as such 22 years. 22 years. So there have been a lot of Muslim rule, obviously, since 635, 638, wherever you want to start the calendar with in the Holy Land. They've ruled for the longest period of time, obviously. But Arab rule, no. The other Muslims were Turks. There were other types of Muslims that ruled, but they weren't Arabs. And so the Palestinian claim of a long-term Arab rule, where they've been the citizens there for some 5,000 years from time immemorial, as we mentioned, is just not true. And again, we document this in our book, 25 Signs. We're near the end, Appendix 5. This book is a free download from our website, Educating Our World, under the heading of Bible Prophecy. Please take advantage of it. All right, let's look at the headlines since we saw you last. First, Israel takes the Rafah crossing, and now it controls a key border route. Following a unanimous cabinet decision, the Israeli Defense Force swiftly executed a lightning move to seize the key border crossing to Egypt, raising the Israeli flag. With that deft move, Israel now has taken the initiative back and is poised to exert decisive pressure on Hamas. It was a tactical surprise, sending in tanks and infantry to secure key routes to the Rafah border crossing and the international transit station as well. In the wee hours of the morning, an IDF officer shouted, "Rafah is in our hands." And soon after, the Israeli flag was raised, sealing off a key exit route from Hamas terrorists and armed smugglers. So right away, they're taking the lead as they're going into Rafah, like we said this morning. Now, Netanyahu, since we talked last, came out and he said the Hamas hostage deal is far from meeting our requirements, and that's an understatement. Hamas's decision to put a new proposal on the table Monday night was intended to halt the IDF's entry into Rafah, Netanyahu said, adding, "This did not happen." No, it did not. The IDF has now moved into Rafah. Now, as Israeli official said, really interesting, to the Washington Post, he says, America wants to end the war. We want to win the war. Americans want to end the war. We want to win the war. And I love what he says. And I hope these two things can converge, an Israeli official said. Well, we hope so too. We want the war to end, but we want Israel to win it at the same time. Okay, we mentioned briefly that Israel was going to send a delegation to Cairo. Let's develop that a little bit today. Israel has sent a delegation to Cairo to join Qatar, the U.S., and Hamas in truce talks. It's made up of members of the Mossad, the IDF, and the Shin Bet. They'll only be allowed to hear the mediators and ask questions, but they'll not be able to negotiate any terms. They have no authority to make any decisions. So they're going there just to hear out if there's anything new from Egypt, from Qatar, from the United States about what Hamas is planning on doing. And so, again, we're at a stalemate there, and Hamas has made it clear. We talked about earlier, it's amazing, isn't it? Their latest agreement, isn't this incredible? That, well, yeah, if you don't want to stop the war right now, we'll have a ceasefire for, I think, something like 6 weeks, but we're only going to release 18 prisoners. And then they said on the other hand, if you want to have an agreement where there is a long-term ceasefire and end of the war, we'll release 33 hostages. But of the 33, there may be some bodies there. They may not all be alive. There may be a lot of dead people within the 33. Can you imagine that? So obviously that was turned out. Now, there's a story yesterday I wanted to get to, I didn't get to, but it's worth dealing with. And this is, remember yesterday, in fact, it ended today, today is the Holocaust Memorial Day, and Palestinian protesters actually disrupted the memorial ceremony in Auschwitz, at the Auschwitz death camp. That's in Poland, of course. There's an annual remembrance of the Holocaust at the Auschwitz-Birkenau death camps. It was actually protested yesterday, believe it or not, by Palestine flying activists who confronted and shouted at the attendees. Now, what's interesting, not only they had 55 survivors of the Holocaust marching there in Auschwitz-Birkenau, there were also some of the relatives of those taken hostage on October 7th, marching together in solidarity. And of course, the key phrase is never again. We're not going to let this happen again. And it's pathetic that you have these protesters out there and saying, shame on you for, genocide against the Palestinians, this and that. And so aren't you ashamed of yourself? Well, the people ought to be ashamed of themselves, of these protesters. But this shows you where it's gotten to. Like we said today, Jordan is protesting. The king of Jordan said, you got to stop this, Biden. This is going to be the worst humanitarian disaster ever. The Palestinian Authority chimed in with the same thing. And now we've got, next headline, the UN Secretary of General, the very anti-Israel, anti-Semitic Antonio Guterres. He demands, not asks, demands Israel end the Rafah operation. He's got no authority to demand, but he does. He's disturbed by the Israeli operation to end the Hamas threat. He calls for a ceasefire that would leave Hamas in power. Can you believe that? Well, no one this part. Yes, you can. He wants to have a ceasefire that would leave Hamas in power. All right. Let's move over to a couple of other subjects having to do with the last days Bible prophecy. Again, if you're new with us, we have new people all the time signing up and joining our YouTube channel and watching us on our website or on our app. We only deal with stories that have something to do with the last days Bible prophecy and how they fit in. And these next two stories really, really fit. Remember, in the Ezekiel 38-39 scenario, Iran is one of the lead nations that will come down and invade Israel in the last days. It's ancient Persia. The invasion will be led by Russia, but Iran will be one of the top nations there, along with Turkey. We see Iran now, again, saber rattling. IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Association chief, says tougher nuclear checks in Iran they want to do, but they have limited leverage. The chief watchdog, Rafael Grossi, said that given the depth and breadth of Iran's nuclear program, the IAEA should have additional monitoring capabilities as Iran is enriching uranium up to 60% purity, close to the around 90% they needed for weapons grade. United Nations nuclear watchdog Grossi flew to Iran on Monday, hoping to bolster his agency's oversight of some of Tehran's atomic activities after various setbacks. But analysts and diplomats say he has limited leverage and they must be wary of Iran's empty promises. So Iran is continuing to develop their enriched uranium to weapons grade, where they do want to attempt someday to send a weapon. They need the delivery system and the weapon. You need two things. They've been working on both for a number of years. And Israel, that's why when after Iran attacked Israel with that onslaught, that Israel sent a message back hitting Iran in the central part of the country, right in the area of the Natanz nuclear reactor, saying, look, we can hit you at any time. And so just, don't fool with us, please. But Iran is still doing the saber rattling. Iran is still working on that. Their conventional weapons obviously weren't much of an effect against Israel. So they're going to be probably left with this. In fact, we talked about this a number of times. A few years ago, the Ayatollah wrote a book in Farsi. I think it was called One Bomb. It says it's all we need, one bomb, one atomic bomb to hit Israel, and there'll be no more Israel. And so that is their goal. That is their philosophy. That is their last days belief system, that they're going to be able to rule the world, destroying the big Satan, the U.S., and the little Satan, Israel. It's funny, as we speak, up on my computer comes the red alerts, rocket attacks going on. We mentioned was last night, between the time I went to sleep and woke up, my little thing said there have been 65 red alerts. They're going off right now. Israel's being attacked by rockets even as we speak. And it's about, time is it? 1:15 Pacific time here in the California when we're doing this update. All right, so anyway, we've got Iran working on this. We've got Israel going to eventually have to do something again. And so, like we said, we may see a limited war in the Middle East. This is very important to understand, between Iran and Israel, but this is not Ezekiel 38-39. Ezekiel 38-39 will be led by Russia. We're going to talk about that in a minute. All right, but also, too, what's also interesting about the saber rattling of Iran, in an apparent show of naval power, an Iranian warship sails into the southern hemisphere. Aircraft carrier Shahid Madavi, operated by Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGCN, has sailed into the southern hemisphere, according to Iranian state media. Measuring 240 meters, it was originally a merchant vessel that the Iranian military converted into a warship. The vessel is equipped with long-range missiles and air defense systems. In addition, it was also designed to carry drones and helicopters. The warship's exact location and mission are not disclosed to the public. However, Iran's military posturing comes amid continued threats from the Tehran-based Houthi terror militia to attack international shipping in the Red Sea. We have a story we didn't get to. I wanted to about the Houthis are threatened to break the internet cables in the area that would shut down the internet for some 2 billion people. That would be the Asia and Africa and Europe, I imagine, there. And so you've got a lot of things going on here. And Iran is, you don't, anything's possible with these people. And again, their whole goal is to destroy the great Satan, the U.S., the little Satan, Israel, so they can have their final last days belief system in Shia Islam fulfilled, where they take over the world. When their final imam, the 12th imam, the last Mahdi, or the last imam will come, and he will rule the world. All right, now this next one, we're going to end with this one particularly, because this is what's of interest. It's going to be coupled with the last one, Iran. Vladimir Putin had his inauguration today in Russia. Only 7 countries sent representatives to the ceremony. For example, the US, Germany, and the European Union said they don't believe Russia's elections are free and fair, but they will acknowledge Putin as president. Only 7 countries sent some type of representative to the ceremony. And you know who one of the 7 was? It was Israel. Oh, yes, Israel. And why this is important with respect to last days Bible prophecy. Israel will eventually, as we just mentioned, be invaded by a ground force led by Russia. It will include Iran, Turkey, and these other nations, but they will be caught, according to Ezekiel 38, unaware. In other words, Israel won't be expecting it coming from Russia. Russia is their friend. So of all the people to go to an inauguration, one of the 7 countries is actually Israel, because Israel in the last few years, and we've talked about this from time after time, they want a superpower that's behind them. They realize the United States isn't that superpower. So they're trying to decide it should be China or Russia. And they seem to be leaning on Russia. But Prime Minister Netanyahu has often said, Vladimir Putin, my friend. They believe Russia is trustworthy, that Russia has their back in the area. And so isn't this interesting? With all that's going on, when Putin's inauguration takes place, Israel has the time and the forethought to send basic representatives to the ceremony of Putin's inauguration, as though that'll show favor to Putin and he'll give favor back to Israel. Isn't that fascinating? But it's setting the stage for Israel to be deceived, thinking Russia is their friend, because they could not invade unless, because they're catching Israel unaware. That's what the Bible says. And the only reason they can catch them unaware is Russia's going to be there for a long time. They're right there on Israel's northern border, but they're assumed to be friendly, or assumed to be kind of like the sheriff in the area, as it were, when the United States pulled out. And so I thought it's an interesting story. With all else that's going on, with Putin's inauguration, only 7 countries bothered to send representatives to the ceremony, and one of them was Israel. Fascinating. All right, sign number 9 and our 25 signs. We're near the end. Certain specified nations will invade Israel. We talked about that, and we talked about the situation which will be on the ground at that time. And so, again, that's a free download from 25 Signs. We're near the end. Plus, we have another book called the Ezekiel 38-39 Invasion, which is just an entire book, a very large book, just about that. We go verse by verse through Ezekiel 37 through 39. Actually, we start in Ezekiel 33 and do the whole background of this. And so we encourage you to look at that, because we talk about this situation too, what the world's going to look like at the time when the Ezekiel 38-39 invasion takes place. And as we've mentioned here before, the 13 things that the Bible predicts that the world will be like at the time of the Ezekiel 38-39 invasion have all fallen into place. You just can't make this stuff up. Anyway, that's our update here on Tuesday, the 7th day of May, 2024. We'll be back, God willing, tomorrow morning with the latest. And literally, only the Lord knows what's going to happen. So thank you for staying tuned to this program. Please tell others about what we're doing. And everything is free. All of our resources are free. We don't ask for money for anything. This is our ministry. So we thank you for, praying for us and helping us out. And we're very excited of what's going on, that we can do this. And we trust the Lord will continue to bless you and yours. All right, I'm Don Stewart. Until the next time, as always, and may the Lord indeed richly, richly bless you.